This is Elizabeth Moen, and you're listening to The Barn Live from the Barn Studio.
I thought my aches in the morning were coming from my body, man. But my lover told me I'm just grinding my teeth while I've been sleeping.
Hello and welcome to the Barn Podcast live from the Barn Studio. We got just Chad here today, but I am joined online right now with a special guest, Elizabeth Moen. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing really good. I want to really quick shout out Josh Zenger from All Eyes Media. He put us in contact together, and he also sent us an advanced copy of your record that's coming out. And we have been spinning it pretty much nonstop since we got it. Wherever You Aren't, out November 11th.
Well, thank you. Thank you to Josh, and thanks for listening to it. I'm always just like, I don't know. I'm just always so happy when people actually listen. You know, it's hard to get, anyone to listen to anything. So when they do, it's cool.
And we definitely are in the short attention span age, right? And what's that like being an artist where I imagine that your albums are collective pieces of work. So trying to get someone's attention, first of all, and then keeping their attention, do you take that into consideration when you're putting an album together?
I don't. I mean, I probably should, but up until now, I mean, including this record I'm about to put out, it's just an accumulation of songs I like and enjoyed making and think are strong. But unfortunately, no thought has gone into how can I keep people listening. I mean, it's probably a good idea. I should probably do that moving forward. But anything I've released, including this record, is just like me throwing things into the abyss of the internet, being like, hope you like, bye.
And we're excited for this release on November 11th. From one Midwesterner to another, we're in the St. Louis area, and know originally you're from Iowa, but you're in Chicago now, right?
Yeah.
And you went to University of Iowa, go Hawks, by the way. And what did you study there? I got a major in French, and then I originally went there for teaching. So my dream was to be like an English teacher in France. So I started off doing some teaching classes, and then I switched to business. So I did some international business. And then my senior year at Iowa, I wrote my first song, and I really liked that. And so my last year, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to do music now. This feels so good. But I got enough credits to graduate, and then I graduated, and then that's good. We always got to have that backup plan, right?
Yeah, and then I instantly just didn't use my degree at all and just started doing music.
So you're self-taught, and
yes.
Your bio, I love the way your bio explains a little bit about what you do, because a lot of singers, songwriters, they don't get tagged with guitarist in their title. But I would definitely tag you with that title too, because you seem to really hone your guitar playing as a craft and as something that's important to you.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for saying that. I taught myself guitar as a teenager, and it became a very safe space for me, a very therapeutic thing just to noodle around and figure stuff out, kind of taking the long road. But I think being self-taught is sort of the long road to learning guitar, but it's also very fulfilling, and you really figure out how to create your own style and put your personality into guitar playing anyone, but especially when you're self-taught, because it's really you teaching you how to play. So yeah, guitar is really important to me. I've done some lead guitar work for other people, post-pandemic, kind of leaning into that. And I definitely can admit that like, my vocals and lyrics are like, I think they're what, really grab people. But to me, guitar is honestly the most important. Because I think without guitar, I wouldn't have the confidence to sing the way I do. And I also would never write music because I really need guitar, at least up until now. I mean, I don't, and probably forever, like I need the guitar to write stuff. I'm not one of those people who can just like write a song just like without instrumentation, or I don't really play other instruments yet. I can kind of play piano, but not good enough to like write a song on piano. You know what I mean?
Right. And I love what I think is your setup. It seems like you like, your vintage Gibson hollow body, or at least semi-hollow bodies, through a little bit of reverb and a pretty good amp, maybe a Fender amp or something. And to me, that's like the perfect combination of what you do. And I think it really accentuates the songs, and you're playing so well.
Yes, that's the setup, especially for this record. That Gibson is on if you hear electric guitars on any of the tracks, that guitar is there. And most of the songs, if the electric guitar is there, I've got my Strymon Flint pedal, and that just has it's the best. If you want like a vintagey reverb, tremolo kind of tone, that pedal is it for sure. And then like track that guitar through that pedal through like, just like a really clean, crispy amp. And that's it. That's it for me. I'm sure I'm going to veer into other sounds inevitably, probably, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I love that combination. I kind of always make a joke as like, what sounds better than a Gibson through a little bit of a reverb and a Fender. And I have 3 daughters, so like the sound of my kids laughing maybe, but other than that, like not much.
Yeah, I think, the laughter of kids you love, or people you love, there's no pedal for that yet.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned the reverb, and I'm a big fan of My Morning Jacket, and they've often said that like reverb is like their 6th member, right? It's like that extra member that they have to have. And I think sometimes, me too. And I think sometimes effects and reverb can maybe try to hide some things, but I think when you use it as a layering effect, it just works so well. And it works so well on your songs, and especially with your vocals, and like the layering of, I think maybe the phrasing of the way you do your vocals, it just works so well. And I think you've kind of toned in on something there.
Yeah, I try not to use reverb as a crutch. I do feel I feel very confident as like a vocalist, but I actually, in this record, I didn't lean into reverb as much as I usually do. And that was thanks to my co-producer, Scott McDowell, really being like, I know you love the verb. We're going to keep it there. What if we take it away here? And then, I think when you have this vast sort of like plate reverb sound in moments, and then you take it away in other moments, it makes it even more special, because it doesn't sound like a crutch. It just sounds like an intentional like production decision. And especially when like you're belting, like you really just want to like hold a note and just like go for it. Some reverb on there just helps it keep going, and like when you're belting shit, it's like, you picture someone belting in a big room. So big rooms have a lot of reverb naturally, but when you're recording that in like a tiny little vocal booth, the reverb that you choose to use, or whatever effects help you create the space you want people to think it was recorded. You know what I mean?
Right. You're basically trying to recreate how people hear music. When you go to a live setting, when you go to a venue, or even just live in person, there, like you said, there's that natural room sound, which is, the reverb room.
Yeah. It's hard to like, when you're recording, it's really good to record in like studios, because in studios, the sound is so honed in and so controlled. And if you want to record a song in like a spacious reverby room, it's going to be hard to like adjust things, and it can get too boomy, or like certain frequencies can get all weird. And so, yeah, recording it in a studio and then later on adding effects is, at least, up until this point, the way I like to do things.
I've also seen you play a 12 string, and I know George Harrison is a big influence on you.
Oh, yeah.
What songs on the album can we hear some of that?
Some 12 string. Let me think. I'm pretty sure Clown Song has some 12 string. I think Soft Serve might. It's a very textural sound in the record. I think Where's My Bike has some 12 string. Oh, it for sure does. Where's My Bike? Yeah, I just love the tone of it. It's great on its own. It's also really great for overdubs. I got a 12 string earlier this year that's like surprisingly easy to play and doesn't get out of tune too bad, and like it's been one of my favorite like purchases ever, because that's my only thing I don't love about 12 strings is the action can be kind of high, can be a little hard to play, and I don't like guitars that are hard to play. But yeah, the record has some 12 string on there that I played. It's got a lot of electric guitars, just some simple, just like standard acoustic guitar on there. There's some baritone guitar on Wherever You Aren't, the title track, and Clown Song. That song has like a little like 60s like country west, like kind of like spaghetti western sort of riff on there that I played on a baritone. It's like like intentionally cheesy, because it's such a like, it's called the Clown Song, so it's like very leaning into the cheese, I guess.
Sure. I've seen that you recruited some of your friends with the instrumentation. Can you tell us about some of the people that are on the album and what they helped with?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like just a shit ton of friends are on this record. I've got some friends over from Dublin who were on there. I got Oisin Furlong, Quiva Berry, and Alan Dooley. They do a lot of some of the guitars and bass. Oisin also plays some piano. And then Quiva is an amazing drummer. And then my friends David Herlin and Dan Padley and Gemma Cohen were the main Iowa bandmates that I had join for this record. They played drums and bass and some lead guitar. And then Andrew McGuire, which he's a friend through my co-producer, Scott. Scott had Andrew come on for some percussion, and I think he added a lot. Marcus Stevens on flute and trombone, Graham Patzner on violin, Sam Ray on cello, Michael Eckert on pedal steel. There are so many other people. Not forgetting, well, I guess I am forgetting, but they're great. Yeah, there's so many just talented pals on this little guy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because instrumentation on it's great. It kind of goes all over the place, which is really neat. It's just, you can tell that there's a lot of influences from a lot of different genres of music, and I think the instrumentation does the songs well. So you must have some pretty talented friends, I guess.
Thanks. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I've got so many just like wonderful friends who also happen to be stupid good at music, and that's kind of like what this record sort of ended up being about to me, is like just all of the, just like friendships and connections you make through making music. Like sometimes the making of music is what forms the friendship, or like you form a friendship and then you collaborate and then that also feels good. But like, it's a really special connection to have with someone, when you're friends and then you also are bonding by like making noise together. Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Yeah. It's really special. I think, like making music on your own is really important and therapeutic, but making it with other people is just as important, if not more important to me. What about you? Like, do you agree that like, just playing with other people or jamming, it's like when it clicks, it's like, holy shit.
Oh, I love it. I love collaboration. I like my alone time. I like creating things by myself, but then I love to share. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I think they're both very necessary. I think a lot of the songwriting for this record came from that introspection and like alone time, and then the recording of it was very much a group effort. You know, a lot of friends coming in to track, and also co-produce, and I know a song on the record. Like my Irish bandmates also helped with the lyrics. My friend McGurk helped. She's from Iowa. She helped me write the lyrics for Clown Song. So even some of the lyricism and writing was not just solo. It was definitely friends stepping in for that too.
And I know that you were at the Chicago Music Exchange, and there's actually some of the videos that I had mentioned was from that interview and some of your performances there. But you was talking about one of your older songs. I don't think it's on the album. Is Heaven Just a Waiting Room? And you were talking about how you were kind of working the door and you saw this couple or this group of people that were across the street taking ballroom dancing lessons. And I wanted to hear about, from idea to song, walk us through that process, what it's like for you.
Yeah, so that song, and I guess most songs that I've written, that one when I worked the front door at CME, I could always have a guitar by the front desk. So I just had a guitar with me and I was noodling on the chords that are in that song. And then I was like thinking to myself, like, it's like, I was feeling like, I was thinking about somebody at the time, feeling really good. And I was like, damn, is this like, it's close to like what heaven can feel like? Is like when you're bored, like when you're stuck at work or like stuck in traffic and you're still just like happy. Like, the doing something boring doesn't feel boring. You're just happy to be doing it. And so that thought came to me while I was strumming. And then I started, like writing down some lyrics on my like work computer. And then I went home and finished it. And then that song originally had like 5 verses. It was way too long. And then I cut 2. And now there's like 3 segments of the song.
That's important to know when to stop, right?
Yeah, or like know when to edit.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to feel it out, just like keep writing, go for it. If a song is really, really wordy or really, really long, it's like, it's good to like look back at it and be like, okay, what needs to go? Because this is way too fucking long.
And we talk to a lot of musicians and a lot of artists, and that self-editing, because you get so emotionally attached to your art, that can be difficult, I'm sure, of like when to cut some things out because you fall in love with a certain line that fits in this verse or chorus or whatever it might be.
It can be hard, but I think that anything you write is like, whether it stays or not, it was meant to happen. And it's also sometimes like things that you take out when you're editing, you can keep those things. And maybe they can later on make sense in like a different song. That verse, those 2 verses that I took out for that song, I still do think there's a lot of good stuff in there, like lyrically. And so I'm sure that at least a line or 2 from those verses will end up somewhere else.
So you always keep a bank of ideas around. Do you keep, notes on your phone? Do you hum melodies into your phone? Is it one of those kind of deals?
Do both. Yeah. So I definitely have a bank, but it's a chaotic bank and like really hard to like track things down. Like I don't have like an organized note of all ideas, or like my voice memos don't have any sort of like title that will let me know like, oh, this is what this idea is. So I have the bank, but it's hard to tap into sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's not organized at all.
Talking about Wherever You Aren't out November 11th, I'm going to quote you here real quick. You said, these songs are about mental health, joy, panic attacks, falling in love, falling out of it, and accepting that sometimes it will stay with you forever. Can we talk about the song Headgear real quick?
Yeah. God, it sounds so dramatic, that quote.
Well, so I have a mental health background. I'm actually a therapist with my full-time job. And
oh, hell yeah.
I always love when people are advocating, talking about some of their struggles and talking about mental health in general, because, and don't get me on my soapbox, but it's just such a stigma attached to that stuff. And I feel like it is getting better, but the more that people can and are willing to talk about that, I think the more it becomes in the language that we use and the conversations that we have. So kudos to you for that, first and foremost.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for doing what you do. I think that line of work, I'm not one, but I can imagine it's an intense job, and it's really important. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Headgear, that you talk about, a headgear like a sleeping apparatus, but you're actually kind of referencing some of that mental health stuff that we're talking about. Can you tell us a little bit about headgear?
Yeah, that song, it's just about getting through a day, and like sometimes, it's about like a panic attack, and just like sometimes you can get so in your head when you're feeling so anxious, and then you can take a step back and be like, oh wait, like you're waking up and you're like, oh, why does my head hurt? Oh, it's probably because of this. Like, why am I feeling this way? And then it's like, oh, my head hurts because I was grinding my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the end of the song is like, and when I get back to my like steady breathing, I kiss my lover, put a mouth guard in, and get to sleeping. It's like, sometimes it's like you get worked up, you have a hard day, but you get through it. You put your little mouth guard on, and you go to bed, and you pat yourself on the back because like you got through it. And also like sometimes those hard days like can even be on like what people might think is like an easy day or like good day, and I'm a big advocate for mental health, like for, talking about my own mental health. And also like I have a lot of, loved ones who have, their own, very significant like mental health journeys. And I think it's, important to not be afraid to talk about it, not be afraid to, ride the wave. I think so much of our culture is about like suppressing things and like not talking about things and like making things look like they're going well. I think, I guess like capitalism in general, like it's all about like looking good, things being good, having lots of good things going well. And like, that's just not real. And it's okay to not be okay, but it's also not good to just sit in that, and I guess that's a little bit what headgear is about too, is like you feel it and then you get through it so you can move on. Like you can't linger, fester in it. You feel it, you ride the wave, and then you go. Because there's also like, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but like I'm so glad that mental health is like something that people are talking more about. And like, I think it's really important for people to like feel their feels, but it's also can be really bad to just sit in it or like use the like therapy jargon as like a tool to not actually like grow. Sometimes I think people can like misuse some, professional or like clinical like words. Like I think there can be a lot of like overuse of those things, especially on like social media, like on TikTok, a lot of like self-diagnosing or like
bipolar.
Yeah. It's like, that's a like, a very serious, diagnosis. And like, there are people in my life who I love very much who are bipolar. And like, when people use that as a derogatory term, like kind of willy-nilly, it's like, I don't know. I don't love that. Or like, people like love to call each other like narcissists. I'm like, guys, that's actually like a really intense
right.
diagnosis. And like, I think, we all can have those tendencies, especially like artists, we're all a little full of ourselves to be like making something and then being like, you must listen or whatever. But like throwing that term around also, like I actually lived my aunt who I lived with for some of the pandemic, she's a therapist, and I learned so much in like, living with her and my cousins, and just like I look up to her so much. And I asked her, like, I was like, what diagnosis is like the most intense to you? Like, or like, what's like the scariest one? And she said that. because of how intense that is. And then like I see people throwing that term around all the time. I'm like, oh no, actually, like,
I 100% agree with you because, you'll see somebody, I bring up the bipolar thing. You'll see somebody acting erratic or maybe not like they typically do. And, oh, they're just bipolar. It's like you're saying, it just gets so generalized, but it's a term, it's a medical term, right? We wouldn't say if somebody was sick, oh, they have cancer, and I know that's an extreme way of putting it, but we have to treat mental health like we do medical health, and it just doesn't feel like we're there yet. I feel like it's getting better, but I don't feel like we're all the way there yet.
For sure. Like, I think I love that mental health is becoming less stigmatized in the conversation, but the way people can talk about it, I think we're still getting to a place where it's healthily or like properly talked about. And
Right.
also like, I guess in like people like feeling, it's like one thing to like, and then I guess in like terms of like moving forward or like feeling your feels, it's good to feel them, but also it's good to feel through them and get through it. And like, like feeling low, it's like, all right, feel that, but also like, what can you do to get through it? Like therapy, medication if you need it, like going for a walk. Like you got to feel it, but you can't just sit there. You got to keep going.
And what I tell a lot of people is we have to be intentional about our mental health like we are with our medical health. We have to intentionally take a walk because that can sometimes be helpful. That might be a coping activity that makes us feel better if we're having a bad day. Or intentionally reaching out to people in your life that care about you and you care about them. Sometimes we're not intentional because I feel like we just get so busy, caught up in our lives that we don't treat our mental health like we would medical health. If we had a headache, we would take medicine. If we had some other kind of medical condition, we would treat it and be intentional about it. And I think it comes down because it's a science that it's hard to understand, that it's hard to understand. So, people use the terms that they probably shouldn't be using and they're not intentional about it. So we'll pick that one up at a different time. You have a couple shows coming up. I know you're playing your home state and also in Chicago. Tell us about those shows.
Yeah. So I've got a show in Iowa City at Gabe's, and then I'm going to do a show with Iowa Public Radio in Davenport. And then I have two shows, one at the Empty Bottle and one at Shuba's in Chicago.
Awesome.
So two kind of smaller venues, but like two different weekends. So, because I know a lot of, people have things going on in December. So trying to give people an option for two different weekends.
Absolutely. And then any touring plans in the future, early next year or next year?
Yeah. I'm going to, very soon make a post about a DIY tour I want to set up. So like just going to reach out to fans and friends around the country and just be like, hey, if you know of the venue, let's connect. Or like, if you want to put together a house show, let's do it. So yeah, I definitely plan on doing a big US tour in the spring or some of it in the winter. It's just because I'm DIY, it's still TBD. The specifics are TBD, but the general idea is there.
Awesome. And if you put that house show together, keep us in mind. We have a studio that I think would work awesome for that. So we'd love to have you.
Oh, that would be great. There we go. St. Louis, done. Check.
Cool.
Bam.
Cool.
Let's do it.
We are so excited about this album coming out. We have Elizabeth Moen. Wherever You Aren't is the album, November 11th. We have a few singles that we've released already, right? That they can get on Spotify.
Yep.
And then we're going to get the full record on November 11th, ElizabethMoen.com. The album is Wherever You Aren't. Again, thanks to Josh Zanger from All Eyes Media for setting us up. And Elizabeth, I enjoyed our talk.
Likewise. Seriously. Thanks again. I loved all your questions and the topic. And yeah, down the line, if you ever want to keep talking about our tangent, you let me know, because I could talk about that all gosh dang day.
That's right. We're both advocates here. Let's see what the studio audience thinks. Yay for mental health advocacy and talking about it. Yay. Good for us.
Hell yeah.
All right, Elizabeth.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks again. Have a good day.
You too.
coming from my